Welcome back, everybody. Bitcoin has broken $32,470. Whoa, how about that for a brand new all-time high? And, you know, this SEC Ripple case, this lawsuit, do you think all of this gets a decision and when it gets done, we still don't have a digital dollar? I've got some stuff we need to take a look at. Let's roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradley above at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this thing. Bitcoin is screaming out the gate this morning. Hello, 2021, Bitcoin says. We'll take it. Yeah, $32,363 right now and 6 cents. Yeah, that's where Bitcoin's sitting. It said, hello, 2021. We're coming on in. That's right. So as we move forward here, look at the top here. We went from 810 billion this morning. We are now at 834 billion, almost 835 billion. We are creeping up on a $1 trillion market cap for the cryptocurrency space. And there are lawsuits being handed out like party favors. Can you imagine the size of this market and this space as soon as we get some of these erroneous lawsuits out of the way and set some legal precedent so we can really see the crypto assets like XRP absolutely shine? Now, looking here, talking about XRP, we are at 22 cents. We're down about 9% right here, ranging between 0.2491 and 0.2219. And we're going to keep an eye on price as always. But look, listen to this right here. This is from Digital Asset Investor who retweeted JC Collins. Shout out to JC Collins. So XRP is finally disconnected from BTC, the rest of the crypto market. Bitcoin jumps over 31,000, now over 32,000, and heads to 40,000. XRP remains in the 22 cent range. SEC lawsuit gets settled and goes away just in time for a Bitcoin dump, which drags the rest of crypto with it, pours into XRP and Spark. I agree with Digital Asset Investor. JC Collins, you a smart man. Yeah, that's a really good observation, and I could absolutely seeing something like that take place. There's no question about it. And by the way, not just withstanding the SEC Ripple lawsuit here, but there are more clarity and regulations coming out, and it has been made quite an issue about Bitcoin having more than 51% control in China, and about the fact that it has a very, very bad carbon footprint on this planet with the proof of work scenario. So I would expect some changes that would help with that price correction, fundamentals leaning in and affecting the technicals, if you will. So, all right, so let's get to it. So look, we're watching Ripple, over the last, 7 years or so here. They've been making this new infrastructure and building all of these things for this new financial system and new Internet of Value. When you think of that and you think of how close they are to being able to really take off with this, because they have all look, from the SEC to everyone else involved, Brad Garlinghouse included, they all have made it very clear. We need to know legally what we are, so our customers and potential customers who love the tech and are on the sidelines will finally have the ability to say, that's what you are. Got it. Now I can use it, and I can use it in ABC way, 1, 2, 3 way, because I understand what this is and how it is seen according to either law, which is legal precedent, right? And then, of course, to regulators as well. So I think that moment is upon us, obviously, with the SEC Ripple lawsuit, and that is exactly why we have to have it, so we can get that legal precedent. I would not be surprised to get the currency designation, because we are a currency, and I would I would really strongly ask you to entertain the idea to not be shocked if we get a designation that makes us look like a stable coin and then in turn gets us a possible security designation based on that stable coin classification. If that happens, I don't think it would be bad for us. Watch the video from this morning to learn more on that potential outcome. Now, this is obviously Judy Shelton, who still has a day or so that could be brought in, and she may have already been brought in. I don't know, for the Federal Reserve Board. She has the idea of doing a cryptocurrency gold sort of way, a cryptocurrency sort of way of bringing gold back, gold bonds back, and things of that nature, moving to a digital system with a neutral reference point, and it doesn't have to be gold, she has said. I want to set the tone here because this conversation is much bigger than XRP. What about the digital dollar? Are we to think that we're going to come out the other side of this lawsuit, get whatever clarity we need, whether it's currency, security, hula hoop, tennis shoe, whatever they call it, as long as it doesn't affect the ability for XRP to operate in its full-scale intended use? I don't give a damn what they call it. But the reality is that are we to think that when we come out the other side of this thing, because I do not for a second believe that the United States is going to shoot the golden goose in the foot and be on the back of the train when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution? No, indeedy, I do not. So the reality is, are we to think that when this comes out and we get the clarity we have so longed for, that there won't be a digital dollar to use when we get there? Come on now, right? There's, in my eyes, where I sit on this day, there's no way that we come out the other side of this with the clarity without having a digital dollar to represent where we're going here. And it's at this point I remind you about Brian Brooks talking about we could have a digital dollar already with a public-private relationship. And it's at this point I want to remind you about that. But let's play, before we go any further, let me play this from 2017 from Judy Shelton. And shout out to Michael Mankiw here who had this. And the person, I believe it was AJ that sent this to me, and if it wasn't, forgive me, but I appreciate you very much for sending it to me. But let's look at this and listen for a couple minutes. Actually, it's about 1 minute, and then I'm going to jump in and we'll listen again. Here we go.
Here's the challenge. We need to reconnect the value of our money, both here and abroad, to productive economic activity so that it supports genuine competition in a way that is consistent with our principles of free markets, equal opportunity, and rule of law. And that requires a level monetary playing field.
How about that? That's a hell of a statement 3 years ago, isn't it? Level monetary playing field.
We have to restore the integrity of the dollar. Now, Americans should care about that because the dollar is our unit of account. I find it unconscionable that the Federal Reserve can deliberately seek to reduce the purchasing power of the dollar by 2% a year as a matter of policy. That's more than a 20% loss in a single decade.
And I find it unconscionable too, Judy. And they've been doing it for a long time. And the reality is the reason they don't like Judy Shelton is because going back to some kind of a gold-backed situation or multi-asset-backed situation starts to handcuff something like an entity like the Fed, who can just print. So when you bring this kind of a notion in, you start to bring accountability in, and you start to bring in a situation where they can't just print. And if you have a situation like that, the people that have been operating in the just print mode for decades upon decades don't want to hear this talk at all.
The dollar is our legal tender. It's supposed to provide a dependable store of value. You should be able to trust the money you've earned, the money you use to make plans, to build businesses. Stable money is vital to productive economic growth. You can't carry out a successful pro-growth agenda if it's built on quicksand. So now let's focus on the international monetary system we have today. A couple of weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal published an op-ed of mine under the title, "Woodpeckers for Sound Money." Because my point in that piece was that what we need at the Fed is not a hawk or a dove, but a woodpecker, someone who will hammer away on the importance of sound money. We need a stable dollar, not just for economic reasons, but also for strategic reasons, in the geopolitical sense. We have rivals out there, and when the exchange rate value of the dollar can be shifted by what other central banks do, it can have the effect of neutralizing or even reversing what we're trying to accomplish for our own nation's economy.
Now that goes into trade agreements and things of that nature as well. Let's say I've made a great trade agreement between you, your country, and here in the United States. And then all of a sudden through currency manipulation, it cancels all of that out. And not only does it cancel it out, it actually puts you back into negative again, paying me even more. And this is where you don't have a level monetary playing field. This is why I'm going to remind you of a few documents that I've put together here. This is an idea of what Judy Shelton is offering here. Is the idea basically, and she's not considering the XRP ledger. She said that there should be a neutral reference point. Now that could be gold, she has mentioned, or it could be something else. She's never said XRP, so full disclosure on that. I'm using that something else to entertain the notion of XRP and the ledger being that neutral reference point. Now, so thinking of that just for a moment here, you have to ask yourself, where does all of this end up, right? If we go to some kind of a gold-backed situation, and let me pull that diagram up one more time because I'm not done using it, and it's very sensitive here. 1 second. It'll be up in just 1 second here. There we go. And if you look at this and the idea of this, the idea is that we could use a gold bond issuance and be able to have the different major countries and currencies around the world that work together buy these gold bonds from each other and hold them as a hedge. So if there's any currency manipulation done, it will absolutely be a moot point because I can choose to just receive the physical gold instead of the currency at the end of that gold bond, the way that she has designed the idea of that. This avoids having to receive the cash from the country, and the manipulation that may have gone on will fall in the country's lap and not yours as the holder of that bond. This provides a more level monetary field approach to this currency notion and the idea of going back to some kind of a gold or some other reference point for this to take place. And it could be more than one thing she's even mentioned too. So it doesn't just have to be gold. It could be what I believe will be multiple assets. Now, if we speculate and consider XRP being that and the ledger, I would imagine we would see many things like commodities, the fiat reserves to back the actual stable or CBDCs themselves. Tokenized securities could all be put up and collateralized on the ledger, bringing an intrinsic value of this volume and utility to the actual XRP ledger and represented per XRP token in a very, very high price to handle the level of utility and liquidity that is going to be brought to the network, which I also believe would be done in a very synchronized way. Now, with all of that considered, you have to ask yourself, how do you bring all of that value of those things to something like the XRP ledger, a new financial system, a new internet of value, without a digital dollar? The World Economic Forum, they've released the Policymaker Toolkit for building central bank digital currencies. I've shown you this a mess of times, but stay with me here. Crypto assets designed for inter and intrabank payments and settlement, JPM coin XRP. You see it right there. What's interesting is I want to play this because this was from February of 2020, just after Davos and that World Economic Forum where that toolkit came from. And by the way, Sheila Warren, head of blockchain for World Economic Forum, courtesy of Mickey B. Fresh, reminded us she's the one that created that document for the World Economic Forum, and she was a keynote speaker at the most recent swell. Just saying. Listen to what Julia Chatterley talks about here with Brad Garlinghouse about, first of all, many things that are going on and the idea of a Fed coin and what someone from JP Morgan told her when they were at Davos. Listen to this.
I think that's good for the economy.
Do you think we see at some point in the near future a Chinese digital coin, a Fed coin? Because the conversations are being had. Everyone's looking at this and trying to understand what it would mean for them to not be in the game here. And I know we can have the conversation about decentralized versus centralized and what it would mean even to have a central bank digital coin.
The word central bank.
I know, we're struggling here. However.
Look, when I step back and I think about it macro, I think it's really healthy and constructive for the entire crypto blockchain community to see central banks and central governments lean into what can these new technologies do to make our economy more efficient, our payment infrastructure more efficient, any transaction more efficient. So
now, that is a great comment, and they are doing more than leaning in. Listen to this from what Brad Garlinghouse said back in November here about the fact that central banks are actually looking at the XRP Ledger open source technology to issue stable coins and CBDCs off of. Check this out.
I mean, certainly we do know of central banks looking at the XRP Ledger as open source technology to issue stablecoins using the XRP Ledger.
Yep. There we go. Now let's listen to the rest of this exchange here from back in February, as opposed to this almost a year later, and the senior director position that they hired for and are filling for the onboarding of central banks so they can issue those stable coins. Listen to this right here.
So at large, I think it's really positive. Mnuchin was asked about this in Davos, and he made a point which I think has some validity, which is the Fed window in the United States. If a bank goes to the Fed window, they're not getting a crate of dollars, paper dollars. They're getting a digitized, centralized ledger entry. And so there's kind of like, well, what's the difference between if the central bank issues a centralized token versus what they do today? Like, how different is that? No.
The difference is that it's built on a private network, built on the XRP Ledger open source technology, which does not have a legal definition, although it is understood by Brian Brooks and others as a payment network because it is DLT, just as blockchain is a payment network too. And cryptos and blockchain and DLT and cryptos are not mutually exclusive, and they have never been used for this level of moving value before in the world, other than an emerging market like the crypto asset space. When you're talking about using something like this for the first time in the history of mankind to settle financial payments between central banks and other entities of that size, we need legal precedent and clarification on what they truly are so it can never be challenged again.
There's some governments around the world that might, you could argue, say, well, a central bank could go direct to consumers and you could have an account with the central bank. I don't think in most of the Europe, US, you're going to circumvent the commercial banks. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
But what about you, for Ripple, building a platform that could perhaps substitute XRP for a Fed coin one day, or
we think about
other...
The XRP Ledger as an open source technology, we think about how do we make it really useful for the customers we work with. We also think about how do we make it extensible and how do we participate in that open source community in a way that makes it extensible to other types of customers. But could central banks? Sure, they could use aspects of that.
Could it be more efficient, what they create one day?
Yeah, and that ultimately is the underpinning I think we all focus on. How can we make this more efficient for our customers? And right now the customers we focus on are commercial banks, payment providers. We certainly are thinking about other types of customers we could serve. I mean, I have made the point, I don't know if I've ever said it on air, but I've made the point that in the earliest days of Amazon, it's called Amazon Books. It was a bookseller. It competed with Barnes & Noble, competed with Borders, and When I think about Ripple today is viewed as a cross-border payments company. We view ourselves as a blockchain infrastructure company. The first vertical we've done is cross-border payments. We want to make sure we're winning in cross-border payments before we do another vertical, but we will certainly do other verticals leveraging these technologies.
And by winning in cross-border payments, it means they need this legal precedent from this lawsuit, however it shakes out, so it can forever be clear to anyone who wants to use it what it is, how it's treated, and how it's taxed.
So you're open potentially in the future at some point to using the Fed coin or the one coin. I'm pushing because the head of blockchain technology at JP Morgan told me if the Fed came up with a coin, they dumped JP Morgan coin. So
what did she just say? The head of blockchain at JP Morgan told me, and that was at Davos, that if the Fed came up with a coin, they would drop the JPM coin. So that would only leave this right here, XRP. That's what that would leave, because if the Fed comes up with a coin, they'll drop it. Well, you know what? I think they will drop it because I think that there is already a digital dollar. We'll get to that in a second.
So I'm asking you whether you're open to the possibility of...
Sure. I mean, yeah. I think I'm very open. Even if the Fed in the United States is using a coin, you still have a cross-border settlement dynamic where if you have central banks around the world using their own digital asset, I don't think it changes the need for a cross-border neutral
something
settlement.
In the middle, like an XRP.
And XRP has been extremely efficient. I mean, look, we obviously have a vested interest in that, and we're not bashful about that, but XRP is extremely efficient from a technical point of view in terms of speed, in terms of scalability, in terms of cost, where I'm a Bitcoin holder, but it's not going to solve a payments problem when the transaction time and transaction cost is, almost 1,000x what it is for XRP.
What's going on with...
And there you have it. And the conversation expands out of the realm of where we're going today from there. But nevertheless, another great exchange from Julia Chatterley and Brad Garlinghouse. The point being here is that I can't see us coming out of this clarity from this lawsuit, which I don't believe is going to go as long as some people do believe it's going to go. I believe we come out of this understanding we get the clarity not only for what XRP actually is suited to do, but I also believe we have to see the announcement that maybe potentially the USDC and Pax are considered the equivalent of a digital dollar or a US dollar representation, because they are held to a heightened potential for regulation, and they are obviously not in question as we have seen USD Tether. And then there lies another question. Now, I had a longtime friend here actually make this statement. They don't like to be referenced, so I'm just going to say that I shout out to them that this is a brilliant insight and perspective comment that I'm going to read you. My friend wrote, you could see the USD Tether morphing even into the digital dollar or Fed coin. Because if they can't live up to what that $1.4 trillion lawsuit is, they may be absorbed. Think of that. They may be absorbed. And if they are, do we see many different digital dollars like Pax and USDC and USD Tether potentially absorbed by the government if it could go that way? And what do we see then? What does the market look like? Because I'm telling you, I have to say, we need to be ready for that public-private relationship, the digital dollar, the announcement of maybe even that, these things combined, work together, are now respected and seen as a, representation of the digital dollar, and they are good to use. Obviously, Coinbase made USDC its standard for stablecoin on its platform for Coinbase and Coinbase Pro. So I don't know. I just know that, all of this clarity that is headed our way, I think a few things to pay attention to are the fact that we're going to get a digital dollar if we don't already have it with USDC and Pax, and potentially see USD Tether become absorbed or wiped out, period. And if that happens, maybe that becomes a part of that price correction that J.C. Collins was talking about, and then we'd watch the money pour into XRP and Spark token, because maybe at that point we actually get the clarity we need in between the interim of all of that taking place. It's just food for thought, but one thing I do know for sure is we're going to get the clarity we need. But just be prepared that there is a possibility that this currency could be classified a stable coin a la a global stable coin. And if so, that may in turn give it a security designation, at least for a time, as long as it has many different assets of value tokenized, collateralizing its value on the network. That's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe and leave a comment below. Make sure you share with somebody you know and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box and the comment section. There are some really great products and services in there. And I can tell you right now, they are trusted, vetted links. Be very careful what you click on out here in the internet. And there's some great specials going on right now too for the end of year and first of the year. So make sure you check them all out. I'll catch you on the next one.